2022.
You don't need to do it.
This is a regular meeting of the Guam Public Utilities Commission. All commissioners are present this evening with the exception of Mr. Peter Montanola. First order of business is approval of the minutes of September 22nd and September 29th, 2022.
Mr. Chairman, we don't have the minutes for the 29th.
For 29th, okay.
I mean, we have the 29th, but not the 22nd.
Okay, so this will just be for September 29th. Do I have a motion? Second? All in favor say aye. The motion carries. Next item is GSWA docket 2301. Petition for approval of the award to Pacific Unlimited Inc. doing business as fleet services for fleet repair services. We have an AOJ report and a proposed order. Fred.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. With this bid, GSWA procured services for preventive maintenance for all light, medium, and heavy vehicles, as well as equipment. So it's their entire fleet. The services include provision of diagnostic and repair services. These are problems related to, but not limited to, engines, transmissions, electrical, hydraulics, cooling systems, bodywork, vehicle cleaning, frame repair, mechanical service, etc. Everything related to the repair of the fleet. The background section I've given you is basically the section provided by GSWA. Ms. Miller does an excellent job in providing the background facts. So here, GSWA had issued its IFB for these fleet services. There were only two bidders, Pacific Unlimited, DBA Fleet Services, and Triple J. So here the Fleet Services was determined to be the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, having submitted a bid that provided the fleet repair services at the lowest price. Now the total actually over 5 years is $5.5 million, and it breaks down to roughly $1,100,000 per year. It's a 1-year term with 4 additional 1-year periods, and they're all at the cost of $1.1 million, subject to a mutual agreement of the parties and availability of funds. GSWA issued a notice of intent to award on September 14th, and the board of directors of GSWA approved this procurement award on September 22nd, 2022. Under the contract review protocol, the $5.5 million exceeds the threshold of $750,000. So this proposed award and contract must be reviewed and approved by the PUC. Early on in the procurement process, GSWA did issue a determination of need in this matter, and the general manager, Mr. Slikey, stated the services to be solicited are necessary for the current collection program of 21,000 households. Furthermore, it pointed out that many of the vehicles were well through their natural lives. Some of the trucks were 11 years or older, and they had been expecting a procurement of new trucks for a while, but that's only occurring now. That's another matter at issue tonight. The determination further stated that the proper upkeep and service and repair of the current equipment is necessary to ensure GSWA services is provided to Guam's residents. I cited an interesting article in the Guam Daily Post of October 13th, which pointed out the reduced number of vehicles that GSWA now has, that is the working Packard trucks. And I think before they're supposed to have 10. They really need 10 to fully perform the service. But only, I believe about 4 now are working, or maybe even down to 3. So a lot of the trucks are out of service. currently not operating, and as a result, GSWA has to do double shifts. You know, so this is not a tenable situation. I already spoke about the scope of services a bit. Just to repeat, it includes diagnostic services, troubleshooting, fabrication, installment of replacement parts, maintenance checks, change of filters, etc. So all the services that are needed. Fleet Services, by the way, has been the present provider of the repair services for the last 5-year period. So they're definitely experienced in this matter. To look at the reasonableness of cost, I looked at what GSWA had paid over the last 5 years, 2018 to 2022. The repair and maintenance charges for the fleet ranged from $935,000 to $1 million. So what GSWA is asking in this bid is really consistent with past amounts that have been paid. As far as the justification for the award, in addition to the determination of need, GSWA indicates that its mission is to provide Guam with a safe, efficient, and effective solid waste disposal system. A key factor in success is the reliability of the equipment and the fleet of refuse trucks that are necessary to collect and dispose the waste. They stated in the petition that the fleet must consistently be maintained and kept in good working order so that GSWA can perform its duty to provide waste disposal services. They call this a critical need, and that the contract with Fleet Services is essential to GSWA operations. So it seemed to me clearly that GSWA has established the need in the case for these repair services, and I am recommending that you approve the award and the contract, and that approval has been included in the proposed order.
Thank you. Any comments from GSWA?
Yes, good evening, Commissioner Sandra Miller from the Office of the Attorney General. I have with me here also Solid Waste General Manager, Mr. Urban Swank, and President of BAP, Mr. Roman Perez. Unless there are some specific questions related to the procurement itself, I would like to bring Mr. Perez up here, and he can, between the two of them, they can answer any questions you may have with respect to the fleet services, how it's been operating, and what they plan for the future. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do the commissioners have any specific questions regarding this docket? Doris, go ahead.
Well, I'd like to hear from them first.
Okay.
Yeah, as Councilor Ferretti.
As Council Haraki graciously pointed out, this is a mission-critical service. We cannot pick up refuse if our trucks aren't working, and this company has, for the last 5 years, met the job and kept us on the road. So, from our point of view, we recommend and appreciate approval of this contract.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, out of the four packer trucks that are out of service, any plans to get them back in service, or will we recommend for some time?
Currently, we have 4 that's operational right now. We have 7 that's waiting for parts. We need those trucks to. We're waiting for parts from special orders, and we have. I guess we have shipment problems from many parts in. Get those things, get those trucks repaired. We decommissioned 3 trucks that are beyond repair. The three that are beyond repair are used for parts, strictly for parts. And we took some parts from that to bring the other fleets back up on just to get the traffic up on that.
Go ahead, Doris.
Along that line, I guess, from the history of receivership, way back, I think when it first happened back in 2011, or thereabouts, my memory serves me right. That was one of the fundamental issues, and to be honest, I'm really quite surprised that now that the receiver has, how should I say, is not as heavily involved. We're back to what happened before the receiver came.
If I may, so I became general manager last October. In looking at the finances, and the reason why that happened in 2018, I believe, where the receiver was actually, I think, before you guys asking the emergency purchase of vehicles, they never set up an appropriate and sustained equipment fund. We are starting to do that now and still try to keep the rates as low as possible, but that's one thing that has to be done. So you're setting aside money each year for the eventual replacement of equipment instead of where we are right now, scrambling and looking for replacements and trying to keep stuff that should have been turned back a long time ago going. So that's the analysis of why it's happening now and why it happened then. It's the same thing.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad to see that at least there's now a plan of action
Yes.
going forward, because, that was one of the big things that made the headlines, the cannibalization of other factory trucks and so on, and I hear you're still doing it without an ongoing replacement program. So that's really the concern that I had. And then going back to the contract, Fred, if you only have 4 factory trucks that they're maintaining, doesn't that become kind of like a windfall for fleet services? They're supposed to be maintaining 10, but they're only maintaining 4. Doesn't that become a windfall for them because they're only in service, taking care of 4 trucks?
I'll do that for you.
What's the total number of trucks to be maintained under this contract? 10? Yeah, but with 4 down, this is where I'm trying to say, is there a windfall to fleet services because they only have 4 to maintain as opposed to 10?
If I could use a hospital emergency room analogy, if you had 4 critical patients, that means up a lot more resources than 4 people with a hang down. So that's, we may have less trucks, but we've actually done some rebuilds on trucks to make them last longer. So we spent between 30 and 50,000 just building over,
Oh, I didn't listen to
replacing
Chris
hydraulic
Daly.
lines,
He's all you
all that equipment, so that we don't have continuous breakdowns.
Commissioner Brooks also noted that they're not FTEs includes the retail trucks.
Yeah, but by the time they come, that's still going to be a long way out. Yeah. Thank
So you have 4 trucks in operation right now, is that correct?
We have, it fluctuates, we have 4 trucks that are fully operational, competent trucks that are operational, and we run double shifts on the 4 trucks,
Yeah.
Monday to Thursday.
And then you had 11 trucks total and 3 are beyond repair, is that correct?
We have 7 that is up at fleet waiting for parts, 3 that we are using now for parts.
So you have 7 that are potentially could be put back in service once the parts come?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then fleet services will be responsible for bringing them up to standard when the parts do come in?
Yes, sir.
We'll look at the cost of bringing bringing some of those up to the standards to make sure it makes sense. You know,
Okay. So you could have as many as 11 at some point if all were to go according to plan, if the parks came in.
Yes, sir.
And then the 3 new ones that we'll be dealing with in a new docket down the road here too.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That one thing we want to note, several of these factors are beyond the years of the operations for it. Where we try to use it just so we can get the cash pickup on a daily basis.
they may be repaired, but only to use as an emergency. Not fully competent to rely on them day in and day out.
Okay.
That's what I was talking about. Sort of triaging the 7 that are there for parts and then figuring out which are the best of those. How much money we have to spend to make them competent.
Are they all the same type of truck?
Yes.
Same model?
There, 2 of them are Peterbilt, and the others are auto cars. Those are different brands. But the same purpose, 25 cubic yard rear loaders.
Okay.
Just one more comment or observation. I was not aware that until I read this, that the folks were, were having such a challenge with their vehicles. But I just want to say that in all my years, my trash continues to be picked up. So thank you very much. And I think I don't hear too much in the way of other people who are complaining about their trash not being picked up. So thank you, despite all the challenges that you have. Thank you for trying to do the best you can with what little you have.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Mike?
Yeah, just in terms of the cost, the reasonableness of the contract price, I noticed in the report that when you initially issued the determination of need, there was an observation that the industry standard is for an 8-year life, but it presumes excellent maintenance, which is not observed to have occurred, which kind of puts you in a position where the trucks are going to be more expensive to bring back to the condition. But I also noticed that the contract price for this contract is roughly the same as what was paid. So it's the same amount of money being spent on
What is the,
Well, if I may, so the contractor is competent.
I'll give him
One of
a
the
date.
problems I noticed when I first came here and looked at sort of the repair history and what was repaired and then how long it took for the truck to break down. I would find, they would go in for corroded battery cables, for example. So they would fix the corroded battery cables, but then, they would neglect that there was a frayed fan belt, and that would go out, a week or 2 days later. And so our contractor was laser focused on, we told him it was corroded battery cables, and then we would get in and do that repair. Maybe not see or be aware that there's other issues. So what we tried to do with them since I've been here is go over that machine and make sure that any other thing that they see or spot gets taken care of instead of reacting to our need for that truck back. I fixed the cables for you, got it out the door right away, but then your fan belt goes out a week later. And so to answer your question, that's why I wrote the comment about lasting 8 years of the maintenance wasn't entirely up to par. It's because of not that the mechanics are not capable or anything. It's just that they weren't focused on sort of taking a little bit more time and going over it thoroughly. And if they see something else, it's our intent to by all means fix it. Because I don't want to turn around 2 days later and have it back in the shop or something else that could have been spotted and taken care of.
It is the same service provider under the new contract as the prior years. That's a matter of
also, when I came on board in October, we put out a solicitation for a heavy equipment mechanic. And luckily, we've got the first qualified applicant a year later. We hope to get a person on board that is checking before the truck goes and when it comes back to make sure that repairs are done properly. So it's my full intention to reduce those numbers year to year.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion for GSWA doc 23-01.
Second to the motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Carol? Next item is GSWA docket 2302.
Yeet? It's dead too. It's battery. You have her bag?
Mr. Chairman, that one is not going to be heard tonight. It'll be next month.
Next item is GSWA docket 2303, petition for approval of the award to Bid Pack RU for green moving yard refuse truck with side and rear loading. We have an ALJ report.
It's a battery. Where's the bag
Is
at?
that there?
Get the laptop.
Fred?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure, oh, there we go. In this matter, in July of this year, GSWA issued its IFP soliciting the purchase of the 3 refuse trucks with a cab forward design, rear quarter windows, and e-hose post, a 20,000-pound front axle capacity, and a side and rear loading combination. There were 2 bidders in this matter, and Mid-Pac Far East was determined to be the lowest responsive and responsible bidder with a bid.
Everything.
I think I've got it.
Yeah. Nice to have a hard
Battery's dying. Whatever.
Fred, why don't you borrow one?
All right, so back to the bid and the pricing. Mid-Pac had made a bid of $1,330,000. So that's for all 3 vehicles. So approximately $443,333.33 per truck. GSWA in October issued a notice of intent to award the contract to Mid-Pac, and the award was approved by the Board of Directors of GSWA on October 20th in resolution number 2022-003. As far as contract review protocol, again, the amount $1,330,000 exceeds the $750,000 threshold for GSWA, so this awarded contract must be approved. Again, there was a need set forth in the determination of need before the procurement was issued, and there, the general manager, Mr. Slight, stated that the equipment to be purchased is necessary for the current collection of 21,000 households. Any further delays in the equipment replacement will directly affect GSWA's ability to collect household refuse. Apparently, this bid has been,
Let me check.
how should I say it, a long time in the process of coming through. It's been many years now, actually, that GSWA was looking to bid, but I think there were various hurdles over the way. But finally, this procurement was issued, and the lowest responsible bidder was come up with. GSWA's petition fully sets forth the urgent need here for these 3 additional refuse trucks. It stated that GSWA requires a fleet of 10 refuse trucks to provide the island with daily trash collection and disposal services. The current fleet was purchased between 2009 and 2018 by the receiver. With maintenance, a typical refuse truck has an average working life of approximately 7 years. Since the receivership ended, however, no new trucks have been purchased, and the fleet has been reduced by 50%, or from 10 working trucks to 5. In order to cover the island's trash collection with 5 trucks instead of 10, sanitation workers have been pulling double shifts. The conclusion is that GSWA is in urgent need of new refuse trucks to continue its trash collection services. These 3 trucks are required to be delivered within 310 days from the issuance of the purchase order. There's quite a while. As to the cost, the awarded bid was $305,000 less than the second bidder. I think as to cost, all you can say is this was an open, fair procurement where there was competition, and this appears to be the price that the market will bear for these particular refuse trucks. The price was the best that could be procured by a competitive bidding process. GSWA's petition concluded the purchase price bid for the 3 trucks is fair and reasonable. And the funding here comes from the operations fund. Having reviewed these matters, I recommend that the PUC approve the award of the procurement for these refuse trucks, and I've submitted an order that will accomplish that. Thank you.
Thanks, Fred. Any comments from GSWA?
It basically tells the story. We need the trucks. It's a very competitive bid. And we hope that the commission approves such a purchase.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? Doris?
The lead time of this is almost a year. How are you going to survive?
We go to church every Sunday. We've been doing the double shifts to basically make sure that, like you mentioned earlier, that nobody notices that we're down trucks or whatever. We do the double shifts. We're planning on really emphasizing maintenance to keep what we have going until we get relief. Because it has worked so far with the help of this gentleman.
What's the explanation for the long lead time? Why does it take a year?
It's just everything takes that long right now. If you wanted to order any type of heavy equipment, it's roughly 300 to 330 days. When COVID hit, manufacturers stopped. And they're reluctant to go full board. Until that happens, we won't get back to, before COVID, where you can order something and get it within, 60 to 90, 120 days.
So these trucks are manufactured after their order.
Yeah, they're waiting on this to put in a queue, put on the assembly line. They're not sitting in a lot anymore. Anything that was sitting on the lot is probably sold by now.
Move to approve the proposed order.
And a second to that motion of Mr. Bagley?
Second?
Joe seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, GSWA.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Next item is GPA docket 2301, petition for approval of the Phase 4 renewable acquisition for GPA. We have an ALJ report. Go to order. Fred?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In this matter, as indicated, GPA is seeking approval of its procurement of the Phase 4 renewable acquisition. And there are really two reasons, I think, why they are asking to go out for this bid. The first is in Public Law 3546, the legislature raised the renewable portfolio standards. And those standards, one could argue if they're mandatory or compulsory. But it seems from the wording of the statute, GPA is ordered to set certain goals. It's not clear what would happen if they don't accomplish those, but nonetheless, the law clearly indicates that the goals are to raise the amount of renewables in the system. And the new standard for the goal is 50% of its net electricity sales by December 31, 2035, and 100% of its net electricity sales by December 31, 2045. So I think GPA is, by this bid, attempting to comply with the legislative mandate to incorporate renewables into the system. In addition, you will recall the PUC considered the integrated resource plan for 2022 from GPA, and in the IRP, GPA had included a kind of a roadmap which, for one, would implement projects and programs to support achieving the 50% renewable portfolio standard. A primary recommendation of the IRP was to include procurement of renewable energy contracts with an annual 300,000 megawatt hours by 2025 and another 300,000 megawatts by 2029. In its current petition, GPA indicates that it intends to contract for an additional 180 megawatts to 300 megawatts of renewable energy with energy storage requirements for the primary purpose of shifting solar PV energy. In the materials submitted, GPA, as it normally does with these renewable acquisitions, has drafted an extensive invitation for multi-step bid. It contains 5 volumes, including commercial terms and conditions, technical proposal, qualification requirements, draft contract, bid scoring mechanism, and required forms. At this point, GPA is only requesting authorization to go out on the bid. It's going to conduct a 2-bid process. The first will be to select qualified bidders, and then once that list has been determined, to accept price proposals from each of the bidders. In its petition, GPA has indicated that the cost of this renewable acquisition, although cost is a little unclear right now, we don't really know exactly what it will be, but it clearly will exceed $1.5 million. So the matter is before the PUC for review. In the procurement itself, GPA indicates that there are a number of acceptable technologies, including biomass, hydro, geothermal, solar, wind, ocean thermal, wave action, and tidal, although past acquisitions have certainly been mostly ending up with solar power. But anyway, I asked counsel for GPA why they included all the others, but it's on the possibility that there might be some other proposals for renewable energy out there other than solar energy. For the output of the renewable energy, the bid states, and this is different really than the prior acquisitions they've done, they're looking for firm, non-intermittent power from one or more renewable generation sources. So there could be multiple bids here, but the fact is they're not looking for kind of the old style Dandan Solar, which produces solar but has no storage capacity. It's intended that this is going to be more firm energy that can also be provided at night. So there will be, as I'll point out, storage capacity requirements for the energy. There has to be an energy storage system that meets GPA's requirements. And other aspects of the contract, the proponent will make the energy renewable for commercial operation within 36 months after the contract execution. The energy resource has to provide energy for a term of 20 years with 2 additional options to extend for 5 years, so possible total of 30 years. The contract itself, it's very detailed, like the former renewable acquisition contracts. So GPA has had quite a bit of experience now in putting these contracts together. GPA again will be purchasing the renewable energy from the bidder seller over the contract period. There are a lot of requirements in the contract for the commercial operation date, when financing arrangements have to be made, etc. There's a minimum number of megawatt hours of renewable energy that the contracts will have to provide. And there are also damages in the event that the contractor doesn't meet the requirements or the definitions in the contract. Now the storage, the energy storage that we talked about, the bid documents are clear that the renewable energy is required to be dispatchable at the point of interconnection between the hours of 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., so nighttime. If it's solar energy, then there would have to be sufficient battery storage to be able to provide the energy at night. Again, if the seller doesn't meet the quantity of renewable energy, there are seller failure damages. As with other contracts, I see a lot of provisions in here that protect GPA and the ratepayers. There's limitations on remedies, liability and damages, credit and collateral requirements for security performance, numerous forms of insurance, general liability, auto liability, pollution, property, etc., and indemnification provisions. And GPA still has various purchase options, both during the delivery period and at the end of the delivery period. So, in general, the proposed contract here provides the kind of protections that you've already seen in the prior Phase 1 and Phase 2 renewable contracts. The provisions are standard and commercially reasonable. As far as the justification, as I said, I think it relies on 2 and probably 3 pillars, actually. The first being the, again, renewable portfolio standards, the fact that it is a part of GPA's IRP, but most importantly for the ratepayers, the whole idea of more renewables is to reduce the cost of energy to ratepayers, because it's been shown in the last few procurements that renewable energy can be purchased at a lower rate than the present LEAC rate. So seems to be sound financial thinking is that by having more renewables, we should ultimately be able to reduce the overall cost of energy and the kind of LEAC costs that we've had recently. So I believe that cost reduction is a major factor in seeking new renewables. As to cost of these renewable projects, we're really in the dark right now. And of course, that's what the procurement will show us. Once the procurement is issued, then the bidders can make bids. I believe there's a minimum, I want to say 5 megawatts per project. So you could get some smaller projects, but maybe likely you'll get a number of larger size projects too. There are issues about this bid. I'm certainly hopeful that it will turn out well. There are some obstacles. One is land. So where are these plants gonna be built? Can I ask for some water? Excuse me for a minute.
Okay, it's brand new. Great.
So that's one problem, finding the land for the projects. The proponents will either have to buy land or lease land. And these are going to be large tracts for these larger solar projects. And also there's the issue about integration studies. So the bids require that. I believe at the end of the selection of the qualified bidders, there will be integration studies saying what steps would have to be taken to integrate projects with the GPA grid. So they may have to put in new power lines, new substations, and that's going to be at the bidder's cost. So they will have to take that into account in the bids. It still appears to be a very worthwhile undertaking for GPA to explore the interest of bidders, and hopefully they will want to come in and make bids on this. The board, the CCU did approve this in resolution 2022-30, and that was on September 27th. So having reviewed all the bid documents and the justifications given by GPA, I think this is a worthwhile project to undertake. Once the procurement is done, of course, GPA will come back to the PUC with the cost estimates. Thus far, we really have nothing on the costs. We did in the IRP get some costs for the infrastructure of the IRP plan. That was about $233 million. It did include an energy storage battery, which cost, I think, around $130 million. But that cost did not include power plants. So we'll find out after the bids what those costs will be. And of course, GPA will come back to the PUC for review and approval. So I prepared an order which basically incorporates the findings that I recommend and would approve the renewable acquisition.
Thank you, Fred. John, any comments on this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, Fred, thank you very much. I think you explained it quite well as where we're heading. Secondly, our plan, which again, the new power plan and the renewables that we had contracted for, and the almost contracting of the about a 40-50 megawatt renewable on Navy land would have given us 25% renewables around 2025. Well, two significant things have happened on that. One, the contract on Navy land, of course, that went through a protest process, and the OBA decided in our case, they took it to Superior Court, and the Superior Court decided in our case. However, at the end of the day, we won the battle but lost the war, because the proponent, Nolan Weir, wants to even give a bid or price on it because of the changes in the supply chain and issues in the world today. So therefore, we lost out. I like to see $100 million of savings potentially for the ratepayers of Guam, and all because of a protest that really, at the end of the day, didn't pan out to be of anything. So therefore, I like to say that I would need your support, and at some point in time, I would like to try and get some changes done to the procurement process so that protest becomes reasonable, or at least there's an ante in the game for someone that is protesting, so that we don't end up again the ratepayers ending up having to fork a bill like this. The other part is, of course, the Hanwha project that has been awarded at the same time as the KEPCO project. Now, unfortunately, that's not as far as long or even along with the issues, because transmission costs and other things have been higher than what they anticipated and everything like that. And so therefore, they're still trying to see whether they're going to do it. However, try to work with them at this point. And to me, I like to say it's 10 years that even that 60 megawatt will be completed by December of 2023, if in fact at all. So based on all of this, again, we still have a clean master plan goal to have about 25% renewable sometime in the period 2025-2026. The procurement before you now addresses the two laws here. In addition to the fact that the transmission cost, remember that to put in a renewable plant, 60 megawatts, 100 megawatts or so, you need to put in the transmission. Our transmission now can only take so much. So we're taking the cheap energy from the 8.5 cents without battery and all of that. We can't do that anymore. So what has to happen is either GPA invest in the transmission lines, or the proponents that are putting in the bid put in the transmission line as part of their cost. So therefore, we're actually still paying for it over time. No? So therefore, to make it where the numbers become reasonable or lower, or is to try and get a bigger amount of energy out there. So yes, they're going to have to look for land big enough to provide a bigger solar farm. So therefore, the unit cost of all of this construction will come down. So that's what this opportunity is providing. In addition, if there are lower ones that have a good unit cost to us and the ratepayers, then definitely we will bring that to you. So that's why you're seeing the 300 million kilowatt hours minimum, and as much as 525 million. We open it up so that at least we're not limited and we can see what will come in, and then again we'll work it out through the CCU, and of course the BUC has the ultimate approval of that. So that's the thinking of all of this. We are, as in the last meeting, noted to the CCU what the next 5-year implementation plan we're looking at, including trying to look for more grants and getting some more money to try and leverage for additional transmission lines to prepare the system to be able to accept more and more renewables at a lower cost, because transmission is going to be the key issue here. So that's why we're now so that we can start trying to hit by 2026. If we did get the 300 to plus, we're looking now closer to even as much as 40% of renewables by 2026. Couple the new power plant, and providing to yourself a copy, at least you can, just to give you an update, the power plant is moving, and so we're less than 2 years away from getting that thing. I have made an estimate on what this renewable will do, because it is going to take storage batteries. We can't put anything more into the system in the daytime. We're already putting in 85. So we have to not back off all the Ukulu units once. So therefore, as noted in the phase 3, which was on the Navy property, that was going to capture all the energy in the daytime and then shave the peak, shave the 30 to 40% higher cost in the peak time. So there is, even though they come in at a higher cost, it's actually offsetting a substantially higher cost during the peak time. So this is the model now that's going to take us to getting to 40% renewable, 50% renewable throughout this period of time. No more just feeding into the system, because again we're becoming more fragile now to be able to handle that. So in terms of cost, Chairman, I provided where we're going, an idea of where we're going in master that. With the renewables coming in with this, plus the new Okudo power plant. The 29 cents you are today at the cost that you are today, you're looking at 14.7 cents a kilowatt hour at the end. No? That's at about 50, what, 100% reduction in the DM. So the plan is the review, not in the cost of the DM. The plan is the efficient Okudo plan, and then the renewables, which again in the contract is only requiring no more than a 1% escalator, so that this price will stay this way over the 20 years. That will now drop our energy costs and then bring it down and keep it affordable. So that's the plan, Mr. Chairman, and I can answer any questions you may have, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, John. Pedro, go ahead.
Yes, since this is just an application for new rules, with a lot of questions to loopholes that we need to fill. And I right now want to recommend to approve document 23-01. It's an application.
Doris?
Just one question on, because I remember the last time you touched on it very briefly, and so did Fred, storage. Because I recall you said earlier, maybe a year or so ago, that the storage capability, the technology still was not there. Like, for instance, the Mila, right? All it can do is just, prevent what you call the fluctuation, right? To make it more stable, but the storage to be able to save that, to be able to use during non-daylight hours. So is there storage capability or technology now?
Yes, there definitely is now. The first phase we had was just to make our history was the glide path or the NRG. That didn't have any storage at all. Most all of this. So we put in GPA put in a 16 megawatt battery here to now got that to at least be fairly smooth as possible. Then we went out for a bid on the Navy property, and NG actually bid 11 cents a kilowatt hour with storage. And that's the 11 cents that would have offset 22 cents, and there's your $100 million worth of loss because of that protest that I mentioned earlier. So therefore, that didn't pan out. That would have been on the line already about now or next year. So now we're going out with this new procurement with the same technology, with the same requirement. And everything else, hence power, is done. So worldwide, that's what's been happening. That's the way to utilize the battery storage to be able to offset and bring your renewable portfolio up and your consumption of oil will come down.
Anything else? Is there a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion for GPA docket 23-01.
Thank you, Pedro. Second?
Second.
Joe seconds. All in favor say aye. The motion passes unanimous. Next item, GTA docket 2215. PUC review of LEAC pursuant to June 16th, 2022 PUC order. We have an ALJ report and a proposed order. Fred?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. You'll recall that in June of this year, GPA had sought a 3-step increase in the LEAC recovery factor. And it had requested a first increase of roughly 25 cents per meters read on or after July 1st, a second increase to 29 plus cents per kilowatt hour effective September 1st, and a third increase to 34 cents effective November 1. In its order on June 16th, the PUC approved the first two increases. increases, that is the 25 cents effective July 1 and the 29 cents effective September 1. However, for the third increase, the PUC, I believe, took a more wait and see attitude to see where the market stood later in October. And then it indicated that in October it would consider whether there's a need to increase the LEAC factor further. So that's where you are today, deciding what to do at the present time and whether another increase is necessary. It should also be pointed out that LEAC will be back before you again soon in January of 2023 for the next 6-month LEAC period, which is from February 1st through the end of July. So I tried to analyze this as aptly as I could, looking at what seemed to be the most appropriate options. And to help on that, there's Exhibit A attached to my ALJ report, which kind of sets forth the three options. And I have to admit, one of the options I had asked GPA to perform, which was the 32-cent option. So if you look at Exhibit A to the ALJ report, it looks at 3 scenarios. One is leaving the LEAC now from November 1st until the next LEAC at 29 cents. A second option of raising it up to 31 cents, and then or almost 32 cents actually, and a third scenario which had been proposed by GPA of 34 cents. And if you look at the under recovery of those proposals, if you just leave the LEAC at 29 cents, what it's at now, at the end of the period, at the end of January, it's next year, it's still going to be 41 million under recovery. So there has been some under recovery this year. LEAC reached a high in August of 47 million, but between August and now it's actually gone down to 41 million. But this chart also points out that it's about at 41 million now, so if you leave the LEAC at 29 cents, by the end of January it doesn't go down anymore. So it essentially remains the same as it is now. With the nearly 32-cent LEAC factor, the under recovery at the end of next January would be 34 million. Then with the 34 cents, it would go all the way down to 26 million. So 34 cents obviously would bring about a much quicker recovery of the under recovery, although there still would be 26 million even at the end of next January. But that would be a reduction of 14 to 15 million from where we are now. Of course, the ratepayers would have to bear the cost of that. So with the 34 cents, that would constitute over an 11% increase in the total bill and about a $44 a month increase for the average residential ratepayer. However, with the 32-cent option, the under recovery would be 7 million less, so it would still be at 34 million, but the ratepayers would pay a 5.73% increase in the total bill, so about half of that. And it seemed to me that on under recovery, that's where the commission has some discretion in how quick that should be. I tried to think about it. The ratepayers have been paying whatever increases the PUC had approved in the LEAC previously. Ratepayers have no control over the increases. They're not responsible for setting the LEAC factor either, but they have paid dutifully in accordance with the set rates. So I came to the conclusion that in terms of under recovery, it is within the discretion of the PUC to at least attempt to mitigate the cost to ratepayers over the next few months. And you know, this year alone, I went back and looked at the increases from 20 cents per kilowatt hour in February, and even up to 29 cents, it's a 47% increase just this year. So to me, you know, my philosophy always is that we have to recover the under-recovery. But I also feel that can be tempered here with giving a little more, since it's so large at this point, to give a little more time to recover the under-recovery. Under Tariff Z, actually, it says that normally the LEAC is supposed to be set to recover all the under-recovery in the particular 6-month period. But that hasn't been possible for quite a while because, you know, the under-recovery is so large. I mean, unless you raised it up to 40 cents, you know, you're probably not going to be able to recover all of the amounts. So for that reason, I went through the three options. I first say that leaving the LEAC at 29 cents is not in my mind, not an option, because it doesn't do anything to recover the under-recovery. It'll be the same 41 million at the end of this LEAC period, the end of January. Although 34 cents would recover it more quickly, I opt to recommend the 32 cents because I think it's more bearable to the ratepayers. We are going into the holiday season, and costs for everything are high. It's not to say that the ratepayers don't have to pay; they do have to pay, but it can be recovery. The recovery of the under-recovery can be spread out for a longer period. In terms of fuel prices, you know, of course, the commission always goes by what is happening with the fuel prices. And it is true, some people are probably disappointed that the LEAC's not going down because at least in terms of the gas pump, you know, it seems like fuel prices have gone down somewhat. And GM Benavente supplied some material on the fuel prices that I thought was pretty compelling. With the high sulfur fuel oil, actually it's gone down pretty substantially. But the problem is since March, GPA is not using the high sulfur fuel oil anymore. So that decrease really doesn't help here. The fuels that are being used now, because of the consent decree in part, and also because of the modifications to some of the plants to reduce the sulfur content, the types of fuel that are being used are the ultra-low sulfur fuel oil and the ultra-low sulfur diesel. And when you look at the prices for those, the more expensive fuels, they haven't really gone down that much since September. I mean, a few dollars here, a few dollars there, but they haven't really gone down significantly enough to justify reducing the LEAC at this point. And by the way, if the LEAC were set at 32 cents for the average customer, the bill would increase from $393 a month to $416.08, or $22.53 per month. I'm sure ratepayers won't be happy about that, but an increase does have to be implemented, and at least that is lower than it could otherwise be. So I think overall that's the best approach right now. It also continues the progress in reducing the LEAC under recovery. And a very important consideration here, I mentioned in my report, and GM Benavente also backed it up. GPA has been on the precipice a few times of being able to afford its fuel shipments. In the old days, fuel shipments used to be 18 to 20 million. You know, now they've risen up to 25 million, and even more recently, $32 million for a shipment. And they have had some difficulties with the cash management, and ensuring that there's enough available cash there to pay for these shipments. And of course, with the large under recovery of 41 million, that contributes to the problem. So I think for that reason too, they're in a cash tight situation. So increasing the LEAC is necessary at this point, but the amount of the increase can be moderated. And my recommendation is that the PUC approve an increase in the LEAC factor to 0.318576 a kilowatt hour for meters read on and after November 1, 2022. The PUC will have the further opportunity to review this again in January next year and take any appropriate action for the upcoming period. And I have submitted an order that would establish that factor and all the secondary factors for LEAC, for the transmission line and other forms of delivery.
Thank you, Fred. John, any comments on this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Of course, it's difficult times, and really it's a lot beyond our control, in terms of the fuel oil prices. And yes, some products will come down, like Fred said, what we used to burn come down, but we're no longer burning. We burned out all the heavy oil, high sulfur, heavy oil, 1.19% low sulfur. So right now we're into 0.2% sulfur that's coming in, and that was $172 a barrel. No? And again, this is all to comply. We're going away from the dirty oil we've been burning on the island since 1955, now to ultra low sulfur diesel and RFO, which is really low, 0.2%. Unfortunately, the price is low, and to get the RFO down to 0.2%, you use diesel to blend to cut it down to that percentage. Unfortunately, again, the world events, even diesel has become a component of scarcity. For example, in the U.S., if you read up on some of it, they have about 25 days of supply of diesel for their heating. I've asked Mobile about that for our case, but it doesn't seem that that's a significant issue for them of getting the products from this side of the world. No? But still, that tends to keep the price up. And again, I read this stuff all the time, right? But the thought in the world was because of the demand was low, the supply is higher, the prices will drop. But then what did OPEC do? They decided to cut back on there. So what is the administration doing? It's trying to get back at OPEC, right? Now, hopefully something happens, but in the meantime, it's difficult to continue operations without having a higher risk at this point of not having enough cash on hand to be able to buy the fuel. And I get that for sure from our accounting group and how they have to move around. So really, what have we done? We have had savings and have cash in the bank to be able to sustain or help in periods like this. When we were at 20 million, 30 million, there was enough cash there that we didn't have to worry about having to cut back in additional things. So just to, and maybe cut back is just to be able to get the cash flow to be able to pay for that ship before it even leaves Singapore. So the going up to 47 million, that really stressed us. No? Going down to 41, it's a little better, but I'm not sure what's going to happen over the next few months. No? There's no more room for a scenario like that. So again, it's a difficult decision. The proposal that Fred had recommended is acceptable to us. It gives us a little leeway. Doesn't bring it up to the 34 cents, which is fine, because the 29 cents at least starts to recover money, back because remember we went a step increase. So the first 2 months we're still losing, we're still advancing cash, right? But when we got to the 29 cents, it starts to stabilize a little bit, but we have no room for anything else. So it's a difficult decision. All I can say is one consolation is we're pushing the power plant as soon as we can, because that's how we're going to burn clean fuel, the expensive fuel that we're burning today, and even at the prices that we're paying today, the 29 cents or the 32 cents is going to be a LEA component, 14.7 cents. That's a huge drop as we had, we were listening. So, providing pictures and stuff showing that the construction is moving, and look forward to that. But it's no consolation really, perhaps now, but that just have to lay down the table with the situation that we're in also today. I don't want to hold hopes and then come down and getting paid for it here.
John, is there a concern looking forward through this winter that ultra-low sulfur diesel could be more scarce and a more expensive commodity because of what's going on in Ukraine and the Nord Stream pipeline and so forth? I think they're converting a lot of their gas generators to ultra-low sulfur diesel in Europe now.
Yeah, there is this concern in the nation on how that translates to the rest of the world. I'm not quite sure, but right now, as I look at the pricing of the ultra-low sulfur diesel, it's not showing me that what is happening in the States is really pushing it up. In fact, I'm seeing it. The last purchase that I showed Fred, I think, for ultra-low sulfur diesel, which we are now burning at 88 and 9, was $153 a barrel. What I'm seeing today, and I think we're bringing in a shipment. I think we just brought in a shipment, but we don't have the final price because it's based on so many days before and so many days after. I think that may be down to like 140, 145. And then I'm looking at every day we have the planogram showing what those prices may be. And it seems to have been stabilizing around 130 or so. So it's coming down. So what's happening there doesn't seem to be translated here, but again.
Are we seeing a separation in the pricing of the European market as compared to the Singapore market?
Probably such the European market, they're trying to grab everything that they can from that end of the world. And of course, the other markets, of course, in Singapore and others, they get this product long-term contracts and everything. So probably doing okay. But again, Mobile is our contractor. We actually have a good price on a better price on the diesel or premium on the ultra-low sulfur diesel. But again, and showing up for us, it's just that everything's moved up. So I'm not as concerned about not having the diesel. It's just whether that price will spike up or maybe they'll find a solution to start pushing this fuel oil prices down.
Okay, thank you, John. Any questions? Fred, I like your compromise. I think it's pretty reasonable. If there's no questions, is there a motion? Rowena moves to approve. Is there a second? Joe seconds. All in favor say aye. Aye. Pedro, you're a nay? Everybody else is an aye. Okay, 5-1, motion carries. Thank you, John. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you.
Next item is administrative matters, review of financials.
just talking about the PUC packet.
Okay.
I didn't pick up.
Do you want me to get it?
Oh, I can go down there and get it.
Are you
Have
sure?
it.
Okay.
It's okay.
Do we have something on this, Fred? The review of the financials, do we have something on this?
I know Commissioner Brooks and Lou were working on that, so I was told to put it on the agenda, but I don't know the specifics.
Are you ready for prime time, Doris? No.
I can go.
I don't have it in mind. Pedro, do you have it under that tab? I can share. Mike, it's okay. Mike and I can share here. I can share.
We'll start off with the budget to actual, and we actually made a slight profit of about $97,000. Everything was pretty much on par. The only thing, we don't budget for is the regulatory fees, because, that's an item that is hard to predict, but it is still quite significant when you look later on the other areas, and of which I think the largest one was Georgetown, with nearly $300,000 for the year compared to everything else. But going down the rest of the items, pretty much all in place. So we did have a slight increase in our profit to $97,000, which was actually slightly more than the previous year. So we're still staying within our overall budget of $515,000, and we're slowly building up our reserve. So that's budget to actual. And then on the income statement, despite the fact that we received slightly more, and that was due, we did lower our overall costs from the prior year, I think by $5,000 or so. And in the income statement, in profit and loss comparison, this is where you see that the regulatory fees really went up actually doubled. And again, I know that's just a kind of a pass-through, but it's something we should be cognizant of, because it's still adding to the cost to ratepayers. Going down the line, everything is pretty much all in order. Administrative services did increase, but that was as expected due to the increases for our staff. Everything else is pretty much on a par. And again, at the end of the day, we made $96,000 compared to the year before of $72,000. Any questions so far? Then on the last one, which is the balance sheet comparison, our cash is slowly increasing. Again, that was due to the profit that we made. And so here is, and I don't see any of the staff, here is where I would like to propose. We did this when I was at OPA. Maybe to consider at least $150,000 to $100,000 to put in a TCD, because rates have gotten better. It's much better than what we're earning right now, which is less than 0.25%. And to consider at least $50,000 to $100,000. maybe anywhere from 6 months to definitely no more than a year. Definitely no more than a year, because it's hard to say. The goal that I would like for us to eventually have in cash is 1 year's rate. And I think that has been something we've been slowly getting there. And so it would be good for us to take advantage at this time that rates have gone up. And for Lou or Omi to do a survey among the banks to see how much is, which is better, 50,000 versus 100,000, 6 months to a year. What we did at OPA when we reached up to $500,000, we had at least 2 or 3 TCDs, and they were staggered, what we call the laddering of a CD, so that in the event we needed some cash, we knew that it was going to expire next month. So that's something, as we continue to build up our cash, to earn a better return on our cash. So that's what I would like to propose, that Lou and company go out and do a survey, and then we begin that. Other than that, we have sufficient cash now to pay all of our bills. So compared to last year, we only owe $12,000 and all. So the biggest, of the $393,000 in total assets, most of that is all cash. There's only one receivable that's sort of outstanding, and what Lou told me was, she sent it to GPA when it belonged to GWA. So hopefully we'll be collecting that shortly. So that pretty much is the year-end financials. We're in good stead. We have no outstanding items. Everything has been cleared, and so we're moving on a steady direction.
Thank you, Doris. I think it's time for adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn? Oh, sorry, Fred, go ahead.
One further matter that I think the commissioners need to look at is our meeting schedule. So it has occurred to myself and Lou and Colleen that our next meeting is scheduled for Thanksgiving, November 24th. So we have a resolution that basically provides that when a regular meeting occurs on a holiday, it automatically kicks over to the next Monday, and we therefore can still call it a regular meeting and don't have to do all the things we have to do for a special meeting. So that's, I guess, in accordance with our rule, I would suggest that the next meeting, that would be, let's see, 28th. Be on November 28th, and that's a Monday, and that would be a regular meeting for November.
Doris?
I'm going to still be in transit. New Zealand doesn't observe Thanksgiving. So I'm going to be coming back on that week. I'm going to be flying back from New Zealand on Saturday. But it's going to take me 2 whole days to come back. I mean, I'm just complaining. It's going to take me 2 days just to get down there for a 3-day meeting and my turnaround. So I won't actually be back until Tuesday.
The only issue is if we move it, for example, to Wednesday, we may have to do a special meeting. But we've done special meetings before, and we can do it. It's just a little more expensive on the service of all the broadcast stations. But that would be an option you have. If you don't want to do it on the 28th, you can do it on the 30th, for example. But that would then become a special meeting.
Fred, are there any particularly pressing matters for the November meeting coming up that we're aware of?
I already know there's a number of matters. GPA's insurance matter will be before you. There's also issues about their consultant for the power plant, Stanley. I think they're asking for another increase. Waterworks will have a major project involving system rehabilitation. We already have another one from solid waste that was supposed to be heard this month, but they're not quite ready. That's on their staffing of personnel services. So, so there are at least 4 matters already, and there could be others from the court, for example. I can't remember, but at least 4 already.
How does everybody's schedule look for the 30th? November. When you would be back?
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
are there any issues that have deadlines that we have to meet, any critical deadlines that we have to address in for November? Any of the issues that you're aware of?
Any deadlines on
Any
any of
deadlines
these
on
issues,
them that
Fred?
are critical?
Well, insurance is critical, yeah, because actually John Kim was asking me whether it would be on this month's calendar, but GPA never filed it. So, but their contract expires at the end of November, so I think that that
right on the
definitely. And the other ones are important too. How critical they are, I'm not sure, but I know the agencies view them, the utilities view them as significant.
We have it on the 29th. I think I arrived in time on the 28th. And I have to go back. I leave Saturday. I go. I arrive. I think midnight.
Everyone else is here that last week in November? Yep. Okay. Anybody have a preference between a Tuesday or a Wednesday night? I think if we have a choice, we should go Tuesday because the deadline is December 1st, so that's right around the corner. Okay. Tuesday. Taco Tuesday.
There's also an issue about December. With myself, I will be leaving Island on December 20th, which means I wouldn't be here for the normal meeting day.
And I'll be gone shortly after that too. Yeah. Yeah.
For the rest, for staff, I'm not gonna be here in January.
Well, so the issue is, well, there are a couple of issues. What, if anything, do you want to do about December? One option might be to have an early meeting in December. Let's see.
I'm also leaving in December, but I leave December 5th through the 16th.
Okay, well, a possibility of the 17th, Saturday.
When are you leaving?
I'm leaving the 20th, so, but not to the evening of the 20th. I don't know, 19th might be possible. But,
It's a Monday night.
Monday.
or, you know, what we've done sometimes is delay the December meeting and have have 2 meetings in January, like one earlier in January, and then the regular, let's say the regular meeting in January will be the 26th.
And I will be off.
Yeah, well, that one's probably unavoidable.
Yeah.
But, you know, you could pick another, if you don't want to have a December meeting, you could make one sometime earlier in January, either first or second week, but that would be 2 meetings for January.
Want to decide if that's
Why don't we, yeah, we can. Why don't we kind of tentatively reserve December 9th? I'm not going to be back until January 9th. Why don't we,
January 6th.
yeah, why don't we hold open December 19th as a potential date if necessary? We'll see what kind of dockets are coming down the pipeline. We won't confirm that yet, but just everybody kind of keep that in mind right now. Hey, Fred?
Okay?
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Pedro, you're with us? All right.